thin isn't better. How do French women stay thin when food in France is so abundant everywhere? So it's about answering that question, not about saying that we French women are better than others. That's not the case. I think it comes down to differences in upbringing in the first place. So young children in France learn about food very young. We learn how to eat, the timetables of eating, and what to eat at what time very young. French parents are very strict on food. You can only eat at certain times, and you can only eat certain things at certain times.
Du chocolat. Il est 15h30. On ne mange pas de chocolat à 15h30. Ah non, 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 non.
And that creates rules in our heads from very young. And we don't try and argue those rules. We think and we agree with our parents that this is for the best, that they are teaching us this, and it's embedded in us. And I have a very good example of that with me when I was in the United States when I was 16 on a school exchange program. And we went out to a restaurant at 6 p.m. for dinner. That was already strange for me because 6 p.m. dinner was very unusual. 6 p.m. is not dinner time in France. But of course I went along with it because I was not at home. I was somewhere new and I was enjoying myself. I was loving discovering the United States. So I was not being critical about that. But during that evening, we were all sitting down and there was probably 10 of us around that table, all around the age of 15, 16, 17, with a group of French and a group of American students. And one of the American boys opened a packet of sweets, or candies, I should say, and started to share them with everybody. So his friendliness was very nice. He was sharing. What a great guy. But me, my Frenchness, was shocked. I said, but we are at dinner table. We are ordering our meals. It's not time to eat sweets. And he responded to me like, we're kids. And I was like, first of all, I don't consider myself a kid. French teenagers don't want to be considered a kid. They want to be considered an adult. But also, like, all the French were like, no, thank you, no merci, no merci, because we were waiting for our actual meal to arrive, and we did not want to spoil it with sweets. And that's just our upbringing. Sweets are off the table. Our sweet treats that we do have, that we allow ourselves to have, usually at the end of a meal or for un goûter, so an afternoon snack.
Les enfants, il est 4h, c'est l'heure du goûter.
Le goûter, which is a set time for it, around 4 p.m. till 5 p.m. Our sweet treats are not overly sweet either. I find that chocolate in France has way less sugar in it as well than some chocolate that I find here, especially on a very famous brand that starts with a C, but I don't find edible because of how sweet it is. If we treat ourselves from a cake from une pâtisserie, then they are work of art and we tend to want to appreciate them and not just gobble them really quickly. But it's not something that we snack on throughout the day. It's not something that we would ever have at the dinner table whilst waiting for our meal. The other thing is that at school we are given meals that are not children's meals. We are given meals that are the meals that you would see in a typical restaurant in France, just a traditional restaurant. You would see things like paupiètes de veau, ragoût de lentilles, really like real food that are not associated with children being like, yeah, it's not chips and nuggets. But we do not do that. We do not give children food. We give children food that everybody eats in France, so that they learn the diversity from a very young age, that they don't get shocked if their plate is dark brown because it's a ragoût. And, of course, I'm not saying that every child in France is perfect and is going, I'm looking forward to this meal. they learn, and little by little this they appropriate themselves, and they create this bank of different food that they're capable of eating in their heads. So I think that's another thing that helps with the French overall healthy good diet. Now the other thing is in our lifestyle. Our lifestyle is different from what I've seen in Australia or I've heard of in the United States. I've seen it in the United States, but I haven't lived there. I've only been there for short periods of time. So that's from what I've heard and what I've seen in the media. So I know that some people might walk to their shops, I'm sure, but I've noticed that on average, people tend to drive to the big supermarket and do a 1 week or 2 week grocery shop. So in France, that's very rare to do something like that. People usually will shop every other day, if not every day, if you're in the center of a town or village and that you have shops around you. My dad used to shop, I think, daily, and I tend to do that too still to this day. Now, a lot of people tell me it's not the most economical way of doing it, but I've always chosen to live in places that would make me feel a bit like when I was in France, because as you know, I'm in Australia now, and I live in an area that's a village type of area where I can still walk to the shops and have my little French lifestyle, and I managed to continue this here in Australia. So if there's one thing that you could change in your lifestyle wherever you are in the world, is just to start walking to the shops and daily choosing what you're going to eat that day. Depending on how you feel, you're not as hungry every day. Some days you're hot and you need to eat something refreshing. Some days you're cold and you need to eat something filling. Every day you need to adapt, and that's what the French tend to do. And with that, we integrate movement without noticing it into our daily life. We don't put active wear on, we just integrate it into our lifestyle. French people are not a binging population. We are a population of doing everything with moderation, usually. So usually it's everything is integrated into the lifestyle. We don't go into the gym at 5 a.m. and do an intense workout, but then drink a massive protein shake. No, we don't do that. We'll walk maybe 2Ks in that morning, doing things around the town, and then have a meal that's got some sort of protein in it. Okay, so that's how in the lifestyle we integrate movement, and that we eat a diet that's adapted to how we feel every single day. Meal planning is not a thing for French people, and for those reasons I've just said, and also because it's not part of our culture. The other reason why it might be a little bit different on that, it's also because we don't bake big family dishes. We tend to not do that. Our meals are made so that that's it for today, that's the meal, and afterward it's finished. There's nothing left. Maybe there'll be a bit of salad left over, a bit of vegetable left over, but usually we make a meal for that meal. So for people that eat meat, we'll just cook a piece of meat in the frying pan. Simply salt, pepper, a few herbes de Provence maybe, and that's it. With on the side maybe a few potatoes and some sort of salad to start off the meal, but that's it. We don't bake a massive family meal. It might happen once in a while, but it's not the go-to family meal. We tend to just cook a few pieces, very simple food. Our food, a daily food. Don't think that French moms are cooking incredible meals. They are not. That's not the truth. We make a little vinaigrette with olive oil and vinegar and mustard. We put some salad in a bowl. Then we cook a couple of pieces of fish or meat, something that's protein, or even a little omelette, because omelets are more for lunch for us they're not a breakfast item. And then we have something on the side, a bit of carbs, a few vegetables. That's our meals. We very rarely end our meal without some little dessert, but at dessert, I can't say that word, I'm really sorry, dessert in French. At are very small and reasonable on a daily basis. It'll be a yogurt, a fruit yogurt, or maybe a little crème brûlée that we buy. So that's kind of what a French meal will look like on a daily basis. Okay, so that's how we eat. We don't have additional fats or things like that. And fats that we eat are usually good quality. We tend to prefer the type of fat that we like to use as well. Now the other thing is our bread. Our bread is most always bought from une boulangerie. Most of the time bought from une boulangerie. So it's bread that hasn't got sugar in it. And that's another thing. We choose unprocessed food. French people always choose to cook a meal rather than to have processed food. As a child, can't remember having once ordered takeaway. Maybe we've taken home some pizzas, but that's it. We never had takeaway food. We did go out to dinner to restaurants, but we never had takeaway food, and we never bought food that was already made. Mom would make everything herself, and what she would make would be simple but delicious. And when I say mom, I mean my mom and my dad. They both did exactly the same thing. So that's some of the reasons. That's some of the reasons. Now, because we avoid processed food, we avoid all those additives, those hidden sugars that are often in those type of foods, and that's a way as well, obviously, of keeping fit and healthy. Another thing that's very important to the French, and I'm not just saying that as like we are better and we take care of that. It's just natural. It's integrated in our daily life, is eating seasonal food. And the only reason why we are able to do that is because our society is made so that it is the case. Most fruit shop will only have seasonal fruit at the season that it is. We understand seasons. We learn them from a young age. I know that, asparagus are in spring, apples are in October. It's sort of like grapes are in September. It's sort of like this thing that we know, that we instinctively know from France, the seasons of France. So even in supermarkets, it's rare to find fruits and vegetables that are off seasons these days. Even supermarkets follow the seasons. So French people tend to eat with seasons. And that's another important thing because it limits your choices. It means that you're not going to make something with strawberries in the middle of winter because there's no strawberries. And that's also that also brings me to the fact that we put a lot of importance and pride in the product and respect. And so when we eat, we take our time. Food is a social event that we share with others. Often people wonder how French people manage to have dinner at a dinner table all together. Well, it's because the lifestyle in France permits it. Children don't have activities after school most of the time. Maybe they'll have one, but it's straight after school, the activity. It's not after dinner. So they might have like a gym lesson or soccer lesson, and then they'll be back at home, at 6:30 or 7 p.m. Dinner is almost always at 8 p.m. in every French household. And because it's the last thing that we do in the day, that means that we have time to cook, or at least we have a little half an hour to cook something. And when I say cook, again, we're not like doing some complex recipe, just preparing nice fresh food. That's all we do in general. Honestly, it's as simple as this. I think the fact that we eat at dinner table is also important because that means that we spend at least 30 minutes eating. We take the time to appreciate and to start the digestion process by just taking our time and to feel when we're full or almost full to stop eating naturally. And I think that's an important thing because if you're eating whilst doing something else, then you tend to overeat a lot of the time or not realize that you're eating enough. I want to say that French people are not better than anyone else. What I want to say is that our society is really built around a lifestyle that integrates food as something that is sacred, but needs to be appreciated and that needs to be done properly. So it enables us to take that time to always eat food that's been freshly prepared. I think it's the way the society is organized that permits French people as a whole to all follow that same sort of lifestyle. But doesn't mean that you can't do it at home, because I feel like I can here in Australia continue to live in a more or less French way, because I still have to adapt myself to my Australian husband. He's Australian. He's not going to change and become French tomorrow, but he adapts to me and I adapt to him. But overall, the meal timing, I've kept that from France. You don't eat sweets before dinner. You don't eat certain foods at certain times. That's just how it is. Dinner time is at 8 p.m. Our children are still very little and go to bed a little bit early, but once they get to the age of 4 or 5, we'll all eat together around 8 p.m. But I think that's what explains most of it. Another thing to know is that French people will tell you if you've put on weight. They will tell you if you lose weight as well. Not in a mean way, but they might make a comment. And because in our society it is really badly seen de se laisser aller, even if society enables it to its best possible way, we still have that slight pressure that we also need to obviously keep ourselves healthy looking, okay? Anyway, that's it. That's my thought on culture and how French women are staying slim. I'm not saying that it's perfect, and I'm not saying that it's the best, and I'm not saying that my thoughts are the only reasons or that it explains everything. But I do think that it explains some of it, at least. Voilà, voilà. Bisous. And follow to improve your French. Also, you can join my classes. The links are in my bio. Voilà, voilà. Bisous.